One of London's largest engineering projects is the Thames Tideway. As laborers dig another sewage burrow underneath the city, they have the potential chance to track down lengthy covered bits of history. One recently discovered skeleton is providing insight into the lives and deaths of river workers hundreds of years ago. But first, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay updated with all the latest videos and exciting content. Let's get started. In a field only a couple of miles from the Gloucestershire town of Cirencester, a stone imprints what is by and large thought to be the wellspring of one of the UK's most significant waterways. Through London, the capital, the Thames estuary, and the North Sea to its birthplace in the Cotswold Hills, the region's history can be traced back to the Thames. The Thames is 215 miles long, making it the second longest stream in the UK after the Severn. Its first section winds gently through low-lying fields. Freshwater comes into contact with estuary waters as it enters London. The presence of the sea causes the tides to become stronger and deeper there. One of the reasons the Thames Barrier was built in 1982 is because of how strong the tides are. Its motivation is to shield focal London from floods, and earlier many years individuals have passed on account of the mix of elevated tides and elevated precipitation. Taking everything into account, the river has always been dangerous. The first settlement that the Romans established on the Thames served as a port. From the Saxons to the Normans to the Tudors, it was used and developed for hundreds of years. It developed into a middle for exchange and for building ships. The Roman settlement was originally known as Londinium. It is now known as London, which is one of the world's most well-known cities. The history of London is closely related to that of the Thames, and the city's importance as a port predates its importance as a capital. Before the railroad became popular, the river was a road in and of itself. People and goods would travel from one bank to another by boat instead. The entire city was connected by a single bridge for many years. In 1858, the number of inhabitants in London had developed to more than 2.5 million, and essentially all of those individuals discarded their loss by dropping it in the Thames. As a result, the waters could contain anything from food to chamber pot waste to human and animal bodies. So it's no big surprise it became known as the incomparable smell. Many individuals additionally utilize the Thames as their principal wellspring of drinking water. MP's poor hygiene contributed to the rapid spread of diseases like typhoid and cholera. Future Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli addressed MPs and stated that the noble river that had been associated with the most noblest feats of our commerce and the most beautiful passages of our poetry had really become a Stygian pool reeking with ineffable and intolerable horrors. The stench in the House of Commons was so unbearable that they suspended Parliament. A bill to address the issue was debated and passed in just 18 days. The Metropolitan Board of Works received funds as a result of the bill. Because of this, it was given the authority to start a huge engineering project that was unlike anything else that century. Joseph Basil Jett, who designed London's first sewer system, was selected to lead the project. The problems with sewage in the river did not end with this. Most of the wildlife on the Thames was either already extinct or in danger by the 1950s. In the 1960s, a series of major repairs made it possible for at least 125 species of fish and other marine animals like seals and otters to live in the Thames. Today, emptying waste into the Thames is the only way to keep the sewers from flooding the streets when it rains. After so long, individuals actually utilize the stream as an unloading ground for anything they don't need. Since the times of Basil Fly, London has become even greater. Thusly, its 150-year-old sewer framework is battling to adapt, which is the reason the Thames Tideway project was started. The goal of the project is to construct a brand new super soaker tunnel beneath the Thames that can handle the excess waste from 24 construction sites in east to west London. The tunnel, which will be nearly 16 miles long and help remove millions of tons of waste that would otherwise pollute the river, is expected to be finished in 2024. Getting rid of sewage isn't the only goal. In fact, the designers want to help London in every way they can. This implies associating individuals and designing from the past to the present. Art projects, educational programs, helping river wildlife, and human communities that live, work, and play along the river are all examples. The Thames Tideway has aggressive points. Despite the fact that the Thames Tideway is brand new, the developers are also drawing inspiration from London's past to connect it, to try not to additional clog and contamination on London's bustling streets. They want to move as much stuff as they can by river, just like people did in the past. Archaeologists from Mola Headlands Foundation are only one of the gatherings assisting with the Thames Tideway. They are experts in urban archaeology and assist with construction sites. Their previous projects include the Olympic Park site in 2012 and a variety of major roads and railroad lines. The process of minimizing damage to significant historical sites during construction is known as archaeological mitigation. It guarantees generally critical structures and curios are recorded and, if conceivable, protected. MOLA's involvement in the Thames Tideway project began when it made a contribution to the project's environmental impact assessment, which focused specifically on the historical environment. Through geological and field investigations, it assisted in providing advice on archaeological mitigation and located the significant archaeological sites along the proposed tunnel route. In 2016, MOLA was then decided to do the relief work itself that reviewed the shore, recorded any noteworthy structures, and started a progression of archaeological unearthings. The objective was to investigate the history of the river in a way that had never been done before, including how the people who had lived there over the centuries had shaped it. At the Tideway's Chambers Wharf site, workers were preparing a shaft for further tunneling on the day of the discovery. The muddy embankment that used to be the Vermont seawall is now a nearby structure made of wood supports. As work on the passage frequently happens on the banks of the Thames, it's not unexpected to find things cleaned up or covered by the waterway. This contributes to the significance of archaeological mitigation. More than just a Roman coin or a piece of pottery, this particular find contained a human skeleton. The skeleton was found lying on its front with its head turned and one arm bent above it. This could mean that the man fell into the water while standing on Bermondsey Wall, or that he was pushed, but we won't know for sure because it would have been hard for him to get out of the mud before he drowned. The fact that the man had not been formally buried is one thing that experts do agree on. He wouldn't have been lying in such an odd position if he had been. Additionally, there was one particular feature of the skeleton that caught the eye. They would not have expected to find it in a grave, and it was the most unusual part of the find. It's not whenever a body first has been found by the Thames, suffocating mishaps and suicides are normal. However, this body had a unique historical significance and came from an unlikely location. The boots, which enable archaeologists to date the skeleton, had outlived the man's other clothing and were notable for their design and quality. Since the additional clump soles at the back and front serve as reinforcement, the flat single sole design does not have a heel. Before or during the Tudors' reign, this type of boot is most likely made in the 15th or 16th centuries. They are not typical of the footwear found at the time, despite this evidence. Leather makes up the majority of the boots. The flax string that sews the cowhide quarters together is wax, and there are no clasps. They are extremely uncommon due to their knee-length reach. While knee-high boots are truly unusual, archaeologists have found shoes from the same period, including ankle boots. Experts are aware of the boots' rarity because there are few pictures of people wearing them in portraits and illuminated manuscripts from hundreds of years ago. They believe that this man may have worn Wellington boots like waiters do today. This suggests that he worked in the marine industry. The boots are straightforward yet tough, so they were most likely working boots for regular use. Plant lining in the base is presumably generally utilized for warmth and solace, while holding up in the stream's cold waters. The explanation that the archaeologists don't think it likely that he was covered in the boots is that such valuable footwear made of such significant cowhide would presumably have been profoundly sought after another person would most likely have guaranteed them for themselves, assuming they had seen a dead man wearing them. The archaeologists know that Tudor men wore knee-high boots in one location. The English navy was greatly expanded by Tudor King Henry VIII between 1510 and 1515. The largest of his new ships, the Mary Rose, was his favorite. Unfortunately, a strong wind gust caused her to flip over and sink in 1545. The Mary Rose's final remains were finally lifted from the water in 1982. Among its many saved treasures was a copious stockpile of knee-high boots probably worn by mariners. This backs up the idea that the water was where the skeleton found at Bramand was worked. This does not necessarily indicate that he was a sailor. There are other possibilities, such as being a fisherman or a mudslinger. Mudlockers are people who spend their days searching for potential valuables by wading through the mud of the riverbank. Mudlarking really took off in the 19th century when scavengers tried to make money from anything they could find on the Thames. Their finds included ancient flint tools, Roman coins, pottery from the 16th century, and a padlock from the 19th century. Obviously, there is likewise the gamble or rush that you could track down a skeleton. Around the Thames, mudlarking is still a popular pastime. The principal center is never again around making a fortune, however, on tracking down curios of verifiable importance. You only need a permit from the Port of London Authority, a bucket, travel gear, and muddy-resistant footwear. An osteologist, also known as a bone specialist, conducted the man who wore the boots analysis. According to her findings, the man lived a physical life. His spine and left hip were both affected by a joint degenerative disease. A few old wounds, including a recuperated broken nose, might have been from his life as a youngster. In the interim, there was proof of injury to his head. Also damaged were his teeth. They showed grooves that might have been brought about by holding or pulling something in his teeth. Again supporting the marine worker theory, fishermen might use this method to carry a rope. It's hard to tell if the man was older than 35 or younger. 40 would have been old age for a Tudor man. As numerous as 14% of infants kicked the bucket before they were a year old as a result of unfortunate circumstances. Clearly, the skeleton's life was not easy, and he was fortunate to live so long. The experts aren't sure if the man fell into the river because he was tired, drunk, or careless, or if he was already on the shore when the tide caught him. It would appear that regardless of the cause, the river that provided him with his livelihood was also partially to blame for his death. The team still intends to continue studying the man and learning as much as possible about him. It is planned that work on the Thames Tideway will continue until 2024. Mudlarks of today continue to seek out the historical treasures of the river, even in the absence of construction. Who knows what else from the muddy shore of London still needs to be found? That is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.